I have an amazing woman here and somebody that I had on my podcast recently. Absolutely fell in love with her story, who she is, what she did. I mean, she's just an absolutely phenomenal human. Okay. So, ladies, today we have the privilege of welcoming an extraordinary woman, a leader, a visionary, a trailblazer whose story is a testament to resilience and transformation and the power of owning your identity. Now, our special guest, Alison, is a multi-award winning entrepreneur, a transformational coach, a global recognized identity intelligence expert, and a philanthropist, because why not, right? Her journey is nothing short of remarkable. Now, she's grown up in the Apartheid South Africa. Alison found her voice as a political activist, working under some of the most influential leaders of her time. Her mission for justice and contribution, it really has shaped those pivotal years, but her story doesn't end there. She went on to build a thriving company from the ground up, growing it from a shed in a field to an award-winning enterprise with 150 employees, earning recognition in entrepreneurial magazines, television, radio, all of that, y'all. Okay. So when I tell you she's amazing, she's amazing. Okay. Beneath all of that success, Alison, like many of us, battled things that we still battle, right? Self-doubt, anxiety, depression, the constant struggle for self-acceptance. So in her 60 years to finally own her story and step fully into her power, today she is here to make sure you don't wait that long to do the same. Now, her book, Belonging, is a deeply moving account of her journey, her activism, her triumphs, her struggles, and the moment she finally reclaimed her voice, identity, and purpose. Now, Alison is now an award-winning speaker, a global thought leader, an advocate for identity intelligence, belonging, and conscious leadership. So today, she is here to challenge us to stop playing small and to claim our voices and to understand that our stories have the power to change lives. So get ready to be moved. Make sure you grab your pen and grab your workbook and your pad, whatever you got to write on, because we are going to welcome this amazing human to the stage. I just love her. Welcome, Alison. Welcome.
Thank you, Nina. It's so wonderful to be here with you. What
It's
an
such a
honor.
pleasure. What an honor for me. I absolutely, love that you're here, and I'm like excited. I'm excited because I know whatever you're going to share with us is going to be groundbreaking and it's going to change our lives. So I'm going to just give you the floor so you can take it away. And all of you who are here, I just want you to know, stay till the end because she wants to answer questions. She wants to interact with you. And I would really love it for you guys to do that. Okay. So, Alison, the floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Ali. I'm known as Ali. And I'm going to be sharing with you today my deep journey to find my belonging through identity intelligence. It's been such a long journey because the woman you see sitting here today is not the woman I used to be. This was the old Ali. I used to battle anxiety, depression, emotional eating, but just a sense of not good enoughness, which plagued my life for almost 6 decades. And so I want to take you on a journey today of my extraordinary journey to living an extraordinary life, to inspire you to become the visionary leader that you were born to be. This is called the Leading Woman Summit. And so I want to take you on this journey of my evolution to the woman that sits sharing with you today. 6 years ago, I posed next to a poster and it said, "Be extraordinary." But the truth is, I could not have felt more ordinary. I had lacked confidence my whole life. And so I was there as an entrepreneur. And I just quite liked the way my blue outfit matched the poster. But deep down, I was cringing amongst all these successful speaker people. You see, growing up, I'd been shy and invisible. I was the plump, spotty one in a highly sporty and academic family, and I wondered if I'd been delivered to the wrong address. But growing up in South Africa, in the height of apartheid South Africa in the 1960s, I would be playing in the leafy lane of the suburb I grew up, and I was pretty oblivious of the pain that was happening behind the scenes and the passes people had to carry and the anguish of Group Areas Act where people were displaced. Until at the age of 6, my father took me to orphanages on the other side of the railway line. And that's where I got to see how most of the people in South Africa lived. I crossed the line and I saw things at the age of 6 that touched me deeply as a quiet, deep empath. But back behind the scenes, there was a roller coaster unfolding because my father battled severe bipolar and there was rages and despairs and then triumph and then tragedy. And it was such a roller coaster ride that it deeply affected my sense of self. And so I buried myself in emotional eating and I stuffed the anguish down my throat and I ate my pain. But at the age of 13, my father gave me another gift. He took me to Dachau concentration camp, where I saw another railway line. The railway line between those that went through the gates and those that never left. And it left such an indelible impression on my life because there were some chilling parallels to the South African environment that I was growing up in. And so at the age of 13, I saw things that I could no longer unsee. But the roller coaster ride continued, and the rages and the despairs grew worse. And my father would drive off tires squealing into the night, saying, I'm going to kill myself. And I would just numb myself with food. And that set into pattern a whole pattern of emotional eating. But at that time, I was a teenager, just trying to cope. But it was the hidden life that nobody saw because my father was an influential, highly respected member of the community. But at the age of 19, I had a further political awakening. I attended an Anglican students' conference with a man who was not yet known at all, very little known. But he became Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And he went on to win the Nobel Peace Prize. And so at the age of 19, I got exposed to students of color who'd come to the conference. Young women, just like me, of 19 years old, who'd been brutally and savagely, vaginally searched by the security police on their way to that very conference. And I heard things that I could not unhear, just as I had seen things that I could not unsee. And so began my journey on the bus of political activism. And so one day, I didn't know anything about Rosa Parks and what was happening in America and the activism at the time. But one day I stepped onto a bus that was marked clearly non-whites. And I knew, and my heart was hammering in my chest, and I was shy and invisible. I was not a frontliner. I was not a rebel. Not at all. But I stepped onto that bus because I had been so moved by what I had seen and could not unsee. And so the elderly bus driver, who was the man taking the tickets, looked at me And in an unspoken recognition, he knew that I knew. And he nodded and he gave me my ticket. And I turned around to face the sea of faces on the bus. And there was a younger woman who glared at me as if to say, who do you think you are getting onto our bus, this flaky white girl? But there was another older woman who was wizened and gnarled from the sun. And she patted the empty seat next to her. And in that unspoken gesture, she said to me, you belong. And that was the bus of political activism I stepped onto. And I went on to become a political activist for almost 20 years, as a trade unionist, as a political journalist, and working for many other organizations. And I worked under the current president now, Cyril Ramaphosa, and this was a picture of him in his younger days. And I actually helped design the logo on the right, which was part of my media journey of being part of the ANC and doing media. And so when I stood in 1985 amongst the sea of faces, which was COSATU's launching Congress, which was the worker movement, which helped to break the back of apartheid. And I knew as a sociologist, no amount of just marches would make a difference. I knew as a sociologist, it was only the economic muscle of the worker movement that would start to topple the apartheid regime. But after almost 20 years on the bus of political activism, I boarded another bus. I boarded the bus of entrepreneurship. I became an entrepreneur, not by design, but by default, to support my husband in his dreams. But secretly, I know now, there was always that entrepreneurial part of me lurking in the wings. And so when we started, everybody laughed at us and said, what on earth do those two know about running a company? My husband had a technical trade background, and I had this activist media design background. And against all odds, we started on a shed on a field in Amalgam with 2 workers on the shed. It's the only photo I have of this first factory, and somebody in the office with me, and my husband doing production. And so, against all odds, we had a quest to serve. It was not about the money. It was to serve, not to sell. 25 years later, we have an award-winning company that's been featured on radio, on television, and in entrepreneur magazines. But halfway through our journey, we discovered that our trusted bookkeeper of 8 long years had been defrauding us to the extent of $1.2 million in today's currency. And we were broken. Even though we were not broke, we were broken emotionally, because she hadn't managed to siphon all the funds just on the one operational account. And at the time we were so busy, we were flying. And amongst the thousands of payments, she managed to create some double beneficiaries. And there's a whole story behind the fraud that I unpack in my book. But the deeper story behind the fraud and the lessons of the fraud is that we were forced to rebuild our company, rebuild systems, rebuild staff morale, which took time. But we had to rebuild our marriage, and I had to rebuild myself. And that fraud became my greatest gift in my journey of belonging and finding my identity. Because I went on a journey. Broken on my knees, I knew I had to find a different way. From a stressed entrepreneur, anxious and depressed, and not a very kind and loving mother. Always stressed, always anxious. I had to find a different way. And so I slunk into the gym in my big baggy black tracksuit. And I couldn't even look in the mirror. And it took a whole year. A whole year. I was in victim mode. Oh, why do I have to do this? It's so hard. And luckily, I had an amazing personal trainer that kind of understood where I was coming from. And he had done a lot of leadership work. And today's summit is about leadership. And so I went on a journey of becoming a different person. Now the person you see sitting before you in her 60s is an entirely different person. And from the anguish of emotional eating and bordering on anorexia and ballooning up again, I have not weighed myself for 8 long years, not once. Because I have changed not just the shape of my body, but the very shape of my soul. And my husband cannot even recognize his first wife. You see, I have gone from warrior, worrying about what everybody thought, consumed about everybody's thoughts of me, to a warrior for transformation, identity, and belonging. I boarded another bus when I started to share my speaking and writing journey. And then it started to make sense of my whole life. And I started to develop and be a collaborator and a partner in what we call the Mindset Development Institute. And I work with my business partner, Jabo Zwani, and the most incredible team to do summits. Summits on transformation, on women, on imposter syndrome, on speaking, all about finding your belonging and your identity. Because if I look back on my journey to wholeness, one can see, and this is based on a model that's also in my book, I went from an insular, shy young girl to an activist. But here's the thing. I wanted to change the world, but I wanted to stay invisible. And you can't always change the world and stay invisible. And it was my challenge to become more visible. But in my entrepreneurial journey, then I became more visible, but I still battled imposter syndrome. It was only when I became a vulnerable storyteller, the storyteller who's sitting in front of you, that I finally felt totally whole and totally congruent. This is the voice that God gave me, and this is who I was meant to be. You see, I've been on a journey, and since my 60s, I have managed to compress time. I have lived exponentially ever since I claimed my voice. And every year, I seem to get younger and have more energy. And I seem to be reaching more pivotal points in my visibility. And so how do we compress time? We compress time by understanding that we live in our subconscious most of the time. And as long as we are hanging on to those, yes, so many people call it limiting beliefs, but that's a jargon. I call it the voices in your head. Those voices that told you were not good enough when you were in a school play, or the voices that told me I was too melodramatic as a writer. So I shut down my pen and I dimmed my light for 30 years because of those voices. And so when you have step into courage to claim that voice, something happens, because you have to take radical accountability and radical action for who you are. Because it's no longer about the voices in your head, it's about who you are and why you came here. And once you step into that identity, the identity of the you that you were always meant to be, something happens in the compression of time. And incredible, from that awakening and the changing of your daily patterns, comes this extraordinary synchronicity of a journey where you meet amazing people and you are drawn towards the vision of your future self rather than driving from the past version of who you used to be and those old voices. And so my journey has been a deepening journey of understanding what I call identity intelligence. And it starts with understanding your emotions, because it's your emotions that drive you, not entirely your thoughts. It's your emotions you feel in your body. And so now I live in my body, no longer in my head. And my mindset is in my entire body and my cellular intelligence, not just in my head. You see, Dr. David Hawkins has developed incredible work around our consciousness. And for so many years, I clung on to the shame and guilt I had from 30 years ago, where I'd let down people in the union movement. And that had stained the shape of my soul. And it's only when I really understood that shame and guilt are the lowest frequencies of operation that I could let go of the shame and the guilt so that I could step into courage. Because courage is the bridge to great things. Courage is the bridge between force, which is driving stuff, and power, which is being the power to be pulled for a transcendent vision for who you are meant to be. And once you step into the courage, what happens? It starts to become an upward spiral of your evolution. You see, when you start to step into a transcendent vision for your life, a transcendent mission, you start to tap into a transcendent energy. Because as Dr. David Hawkins says, the unconscious will only allow us to have what we believe we deserve. So as long as you're still trapped in the voices that say, who are you to? Why did you do that? What will somebody think of me? Oh, how are they going to receive me? You will be on somebody else's journey, not your transcendent journey. Because here's the thing, we don't learn our identity by watching other people. For so many years, I was the eternal student of self-development. I was the spectator in the wings of other people's stadiums, watching them on the stage. But it was only when I got out of that spectator state and stepped into the arena of becoming a vulnerable speaker, writer, and storyteller that my identity really shifted exponentially. Because stepping into the arena, I realized that the gladiator I was facing was not somebody else, but it was the old version of who I used to be. So as I close and open up for conversation and questions, and we go into a dialogue, I want you to step into the arena of your life and go out and be extraordinary, because this world needs our voices like never before. Shoot for the moon, because even if you miss, you'll be on a transcendent journey, and you will be amongst the stars. It will no longer be linear. It will be exponential. Go out and become extraordinary. Thank you. So that's what I wanted to share with you today as my opening message, so that I could take you on a visual journey, because it's not quite the same when I just tell my story. But when you see my story, and I see the slides that you are seeing, it becomes a visual collaboration of a journey that we are on today. So Nina, I'd like to hear what that evoked for you. And then I'd like to hear from some of the people watching what came up for them.
I love all of that. And thank you for sharing your story and being vulnerable and showing us your journey, because it really shows us too that we should be looking at our journey as well. There's so much magnificence in all of us, right? In all of our journeys and what we go through. And everything that we go through is for a purpose, is for a plan. I believe that. And I love that you said we don't learn our identity by watching others' journey. Like that one really stuck with me, because it's something that I say often is, we stopped living our lives and now we live watching other people live their lives, right? That's what social media and all that has done to us. But, finding your identity and really connecting with who you are is such a gift, right? It's such a gift. And so I wanted to ask you, for the women in this room who feel like they are searching, right, for the belonging, for the purpose, what would you recommend for them as the first step that they can take to start reclaiming their identity, right? To find their voice and to step into that life that they're really meant to have, like you did, right? So I'm just wondering where we can all begin.
My starting point was to start to live in my body, not my head.
Mm,
Because I'd read so much. I'd gone to self-development seminars and they said, you've got to accept yourself and love yourself for who you are. And I heard it there, but I didn't feel it here. And it
mm,
wasn't until I went on that bodily transformation. So I think the first step is to do things that get you back in your body, but that are not so daunting that it becomes overwhelming that you do it once and you never do it again. So, for example, I've got a wonderful friend of mine. He's lost 70 kilograms. He's a fellow speaker, 70 kilograms. And he said to me, Ali, I couldn't go to the gym. I mean, I couldn't go to the gym. It was terrifying for me. But I like walking and I like meeting people. So I decided I'm going to start doing walks. And I started to get to know people along my route. And eventually I was walking 10 kilometers and I was making it a route and I was seeing people and I was feeding my soul in a way that wasn't daunting. So I think when we go into a bodily expression of our identity, we start to shift something on a cellular level that's beyond the mind.
mm.
So I would say bring in something in your daily patterns. And if you have a busy week, you can't do it one week, then the critical thing is to not beat yourself up about it. Because I believe if you set yourself goals and you don't meet them, your whole life gets goal driven. And then when you don't meet the goals, what do? You beat yourself up. And what do? You generally head for the fridge. Well, that's what I used to do.
Me
And
too.
so you've got to do things that are about your long-term identity. So I decided, initially I was just in survival mode in this transition. But as the journey deepened, I started to act like an athlete, to think like an athlete. And then I joined a walking club, and the walking club became a running club. And then I started doing regular 21K races. And then one day on a chilly morning in Pretoria near Johannesburg, the man who had the starter gun said, athletes, are you ready? And I was like, me? An athlete? How did that happen? But that's how it happened, step by step by step. And now if I can't go to the gym In a busy week, I try and do a bit of stretching, a bit of little weights at home, but I don't beat myself up because I know that beating myself is the antidote to love. And you need to love your body if you want to transform your body. So you'd never, ever look in the mirror with derision. And you never, ever beat yourself up if something doesn't quite go as planned. And I hope that's inspiration for the start of a journey. It starts with the patterns of identity, envisioning who you want to be. I now eat like an athlete. I eat for peak performance. I eat for mental clarity because I am living life at an incredible pitch as I sit here. I did a podcast at midnight last night for an hour, and I'm sitting here today in studio. And so if you want to live an exponential life as a leader, that's what it takes. It takes the start of changing patterns and being kind to yourself, not weighing yourself, not beating yourself up, but loving the journey of becoming.
That's beautiful. And something that I think especially women tend to do is beat themselves up if they didn't finish,
Absolutely.
finish that goal, if they didn't lose that pound, if they didn't,
Yeah.
we tend to do that. And I know that our minds just go there, right? Here's one thing I took away from what you were doing too, is your storytelling is very impactful. I see you lean into the truth of your story, tell us your story, really emphasize what you're doing, what you're saying, right? Because storytelling is a gift and it's a skill, right?
Yeah.
And there's such power in storytelling. And I know that this is the central of your work. And for the women who are here and those who will watch the recordings and the live and everything else, how can all these coaches and mentors and entrepreneurs, how can they incorporate or start using storytelling to build up their brands, connect deeply with their audience, inspire transformation? How can they do that?
I love that message, Lena, because the person you see sitting behind this camera today is not the person I used to be. At a book launch some time ago, somebody said to me, yeah, when Ali started first speaking, she screeched at the camera and she name dropped and he was very critical. And the first public foray into speaking, which was about 4 years ago, I had a small intimate group. It was for a Women's Day event. And there were 18 people in the room. 17 people gave me rave reviews. And they said, she was amazing. She touched my soul. One woman asked to meet me again, and we deepened her journey. And she said I was pivotal in changing the trajectory of her life. But there was one woman who said, I really didn't enjoy her. Not my kind of speaker. Plus, she walked across the slides, couldn't see the slides clearly. The lighting wasn't good. And I got it all. So what did I do? I didn't get defensive. I heard the positive ones, and I heard that and absorbed that. And I felt God gave you this voice for a reason. But what did I do? I heard the other bit. Without defensiveness, I signed up with a global coach, a speaker coach, who helped me develop my unique voice. But above all, I became part of a professional speakers community. And you have the NSA, Toastmasters in America, and many other organizations. So that tribe became the tribe that curated my courage. I wasn't watching them to compare myself, to put myself down. Now we've got a parallel between the body and the speaker.
Right.
I wasn't doing it for that. I was doing it so I could learn and grow. Not to impress other people, not to feel that I was X or Y, not even to benchmark myself, but just to develop my unique voice. And that speaker coach knew that I had a unique voice. And he helped me bring out that unique voice. And he helped me get rid of the tech and the stuff that would hold me back. And another global speaker said, Annie, you've got a unique voice. You've got a unique message of storytelling. Don't let don't let tech get in the way of your voice. So I
Mm.
want to say to all of you sitting there today who like, oh, how am I going to do that? Do you know, it was only 3 years ago that I got mic'd up professionally for the first time when I spoke at a conference, and nobody knew I'd never been professionally mic'd up. But that's because I had entered a realm of powerful storytelling. There is nothing more powerful than your own story.
Yes.
When I first went on a podcast, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, I was on a global podcast. I was nervous. I quoted every other thought leader I could talk about, nothing about me. I want to add in another element about storytelling. I studied neuroscience under the late Judith Glaser, and it's all about empathy and connection. And the thing is, I have heard speakers speak about connection, but they don't tell me anything about their story. So I don't connect with them before they give me the theory of connection. I can't hear the theory of connection if I haven't connected with you and understood from you. Why are you so passionate about connection? I told you today why I'm so passionate about identity, because it took me 60 years to find my way, and I don't want you to wait 60 years. So that is my passion about storytelling. It's about developing your own unique voice, your own unique style, and it just gets easier and easier. And every time you get out of the arena, you learn something more.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're not learning lessons of growth. You can go into the jargon of growth mindset. I don't call it that. I say it's God shaping me every time I speak. Because every time I speak, I learn a little bit more. I share a little bit more. And I get a little bit more comfortable behind the
Mhm.
camera or on the stage or on the page.
That's so beautiful. Ladies, does anybody have any questions for this amazing woman? Anybody have any questions? Unmic yourself, because I think I let you do that. Unmic yourself and go ahead and ask.
I don't have a question, but I have just some insight. You are incredible, first of all. I'm in tears. You are incredible. Um, you had so much wisdom you shared with us, and I do think that I'm of your era, and I think that has a lot to do with us holding ourselves back. Um, I really do, and I have stepped into that arena of leaving all that crap behind. So very powerful. Thank you so much.
It's so wonderful to see your face on the screen. And I can see that and I can sense that. There's a clarity and a luminosity about your face that you know why you're here now.
Yeah.
And I see it. Thank you.
Yeah, she's yeah, all that's true. I love her so much. I am so grateful for you, Allison. I'm so grateful for your voice. We were streaming live also on YouTube. We're going to be streaming this. I'm going to take this whole recording and stream it everywhere today. But I oh, hold on. Whew. Okay. You are so unbelievably amazing, and your voice and what you do to lay that out for us so that we can also reach into who we are and how we show up and our authenticity, because for so many years you don't want to tell your story because it's so embarrassing or it's so this or it's so that, right? And then you get to a certain age where you're like, F it. That's just my story. Either you like it or you don't like it. But I love that you're telling us, listen, you have a story, you have a voice, and there's a way to present this. There's a way to bring this out to the world so that it hits them in the heart, in the body, in the emotion, right? And also allows you to be real and present it to the world without shame
Yeah.
or anything holding you back, or the ugly stuff we tell ourselves, when it's quiet, right? And we don't think we're good enough.
Yeah. Yep.
That was just completely an amazing powerful session. I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to do it. And now I got to go do my makeup again for later, but that's okay. So I don't want to wrap this up though without allowing you to let us know how we can support you and follow you and pick up your book and all of those things. Because, like I said, I'm streaming all of this live in just a few moments as well. So I want to make sure everybody has that. So let us know how we can do that.
Thank you, Nina. You can reach me through my website, alisonweihe.com, ALISONWEIHE.com. I've just revived my website to showcase more of my speaking and more of upcoming events. So there's also a free gift in there for your listeners, a little e-booklet on the power of first impressions. And it has to do with identity and the power of identity. So I'd love people to go on and download that and get that.
Sure.
But I'm active on LinkedIn, on Facebook. I do a lot of thought leadership. I'm on Instagram, slowly growing more and more, because a lot of book thinkers are on Instagram, as well as TikTok. And I do summits regularly in South Africa, but I also do global speaking and global events. So I would so love you to follow me, because it's not about me anymore. I'm just the messenger. But the more you support my journey, the more you support the journey of allowing others to claim their voice. And my book is downloadable on Amazon. It's called Belonging, Finding Tribes of Meaning. And I think today I unpacked just how much tribes grew me. And so I'd love you to leave a review on Amazon. I'd love to get feedback on what touched you about my message, because I don't want you to wait 60 years to start loving yourself, to start believing yourself, and to start owning your story, because your story could change somebody else's life.
Yes. Oh, well, I mean, you changed ours. So, yes, that is true. Thank you so much, Allison, for being here
Thank you.
and for doing this and for, I know you had to go to a studio and set everything up, and that just shows your commitment to excellence.
Yeah.
And I am truly, truly grateful for you. And I'm going to make sure to share this high and wide. I see you guys on YouTube. Hi. So I will make sure to share all of this. I will ping you in all of it. And I'm just so grateful. I cannot thank you enough for, being a part of this journey with me, right? My 21-day summit for these amazing women. This has been a monster to put together, but a blessing. And it's because of people like you, speakers like you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your heart and soul. And ladies, we're going to wrap up unless somebody has anything else to say. We're all good? Okay. So thank you so much. And this is the Women Who Lead Summit. I told you this was going to be a phenomenal speaker you didn't want to miss. All right. Until next time.